Spirit Level by Sophie Parkes, as part of Ghosts at the Old Library. The water plashed on the patio outside. It sounded like someone was taking a shower, right there beneath the guttering, in view of next door's net curtains. She should take a look. Something not picked up on the survey. But that would mean getting up from the dining table, and it was dark and it was raining, and she didn't know where Seb had put the stepladder after he'd used it to examine the flickering landing light. Something else not picked up on the survey. Did they even survey lights? She couldn't remember. It really was dark. Even in the daytime, in the middle of the day, the hedge obscured the front room window, so the wall she had painted Devonshire clotted cream shadowed to bile. The kitchen didn't warm when the range they had installed delivered them a roast dinner. In the bathroom, she dreaded shrugging off her dressing gown to duck beneath the shower's feeble spray. She'd known on the first viewing, she'd been certain on the second, so why hadn't she said anything? It was all right for Seb. His hours kept him in the office with clients, or at restaurants with clients, or in the box at the football, or the rugby, or the cricket with clients, and it was always dark when he left the house, and always dark when he returned, that he didn't notice the clotted cream walls, or the draughts in the kitchen, or the Arctic bathroom. Flushed with competition and wine, that he didn't notice anything. The wedding list Egyptian cotton that had arrived from John Lewis, the wallpaper she'd quietly put up in the cupboard under the stairs to see if she could do it, the mother-in-law's tongue that looked too abrasive no matter where she placed it. The house had a tiny sliver of a kitchen and a plasterboard wall separating it from the dining room, and Seb had noticed that on the first viewing, had teed up his dad's team, and in they had roughed the first weekend in their new place, leaving footprints on the linoleum that was later sloughed off and skipped like exotic snakeskin. Knocking through was absolutely the right thing to do, she reasoned. They wouldn't have been able to fit in a range if they hadn't. From the kitchen table, she could see fat, incessant raindrops glimmer in the streetlights beyond the damp ferns at the boundary wall. She should shroud the back door behind a curtain, thick enough to deaden the sound of the water and blot out the streetlights. It had to be the guttering, but she couldn't see through the darkness to confirm. She should get Seb's dad's men to put up a light, the kind that came on when there was movement in the garden. They should get a cat. She should also make food. She stood, turned to the kitchen and switched on the radio, which snuffled in static. She pressed the DAB button to cycle between stations, but it was dead, so she switched it off. She opened the fridge to confront the shelves of food that she had bought them both, but only she would likely eat. Eggs and avocados, a soft box of mushrooms, triangles of expensive cheese she would eat straight from the paper. She wondered when Seb had found the time to eat the salmon and most of the green beans. There was only a child's fist of them left, and each had wilted at the knee. She closed the fridge door and went to add salmon to the magnetic shopping list, the top page curling at her touch. Salmon had already been noted in a hurried hand. She didn't know whether to feel pleased that Seb had noticed her ritual, found the time to eat something and record the need for its replacement, or crossed that he had added a shopping item, knowing full well it would be her doing the shopping. She tried the fridge again. There was cream cheese, some decent bread in the bread bin. She took a piled plate to the living room, turned on the television and watched the hedges sprawl through the front room window. The next night, the rain continued to plash down as though someone was having a shower right there, beneath the guttering and in view of next door's window. She shook out the curtain she had bought for the back door from its plastic packet. A heavy faux velvet in a dark paisley, it would dim both sound and streetlight. It reminded her of junk shops and pantomime sets. She would need the stepladder to put up the curtain pole. She padded upstairs towards the fizzing landing light. After 30 seconds, the low buzzing stopped, and instead the light began to flash, clicking like a forbidding tongue. The stepladder would be nearby. It had been late when Seb set it up, later still when he'd packed it down, unable to decipher the problem. She moved from room to room. It wasn't behind the bathroom door, their bedroom door. It wasn't tucked under the spare bed. She tracked downstairs, skin pimpling on the back of her neck. She resigned to use a dining chair when she saw it, the stepladder, open and limber, by the back door. The radio broke into static again, hiccuped, then fell silent. A fine sweat on her eyebrows, the wet of her palms. She looked out at the rain, back over her shoulder at the front door. She should get a cat. They should get a cat. Spirit level. Her feet clanged on the rungs of the stepladder as she stood back to appraise the pole. Of course she could do it. She didn't know why she'd doubted herself. It was only putting plugs in the wall. The curtain rings slid on easily, like they knew their purpose in life. She fed the new curtain onto the pole, and it hung in the middle, straight and functional, like toilet paper, too narrow to cover the door in its entirety. Not like that. A voice so close to her ear she could have said it herself. But she hadn't, had she? It wasn't her voice, though it was unmistakably female. There was a trace of something, age, an accent. She thought of the local stories her grandma had told her, boggarts, little creatures running amok as soon as human backs were turned. But Grandma's voice was different. Softer, more patient. How then, she thought, stepping back onto the bare concrete. The curtain looked no better. How then, she said aloud, her voice stronger than she expected. Seb hadn't eaten the salmon. But still the curtain hung. She should make dinner. It was already late, and she would have little chance of sleep if her stomach was full. She had little chance as it was, with the landing light humming at increasing intervals, and the rain and the fishy smell. Yes, there was a fishy smell. She knew it. She opened the fridge, their orange Le Creuset dish in the centre, glowing full cucurbita in the glare. Fish heads pointing upwards like little party hats, trying to leap out of the pastry. How had Seb... She shut the fridge door. Salmon had been crossed out on the shopping list. The fish smell intensified. Would boggarts come up on a survey? She heard her footsteps in the hallway, then folded her feet into the sofa, pulled a blanket across her lap. The walls were still vomit beige, the hedge still loomed in front of the window. She was sure she'd seen the same quiz show yesterday. Try again. The accent. She thought of mountains, of sea spray, Ireland perhaps, Scotland. No. Its clarity, it could have been someone sitting next to her, but the blanket puddled where a cat could be. Boggarts didn't speak, she was certain. The cat would like the fish. She padded back out into the kitchen diner. The step-ladder now leant against the wall, collapsed as though to be put away. The curtain was cinched at the waist by a tie-back and draped across the door so that it blocked out the streetlights. Seb would surely notice that. The water only plashed when she listened for it. She would eat the stargazy pie. She opened the fridge and took out the pointy fish heads one by one, setting them on the worktop and taking care to avoid touching their milky eyes. The next night she set out bundles of sage leaves along the kitchen table. Though the rain still plashed onto the slabs beyond the back door, the artfully arranged curtain tempered the noise so it sounded less like someone taking a shower in view of next door's net curtains and more like a water feature in next door's yard. She'd managed to keep the bundles dry on the bus ride home from the market stall. The leaves seemed crumblier than the sage she would occasionally use in cooking and fell apart when she poked in a nail to test the strength of the twine. She should burn the twine too, she supposed, and half considered drawing up a YouTube video to check. But no, it felt important to act on instinct. No outside influences. At first, her thumbnail fumbled with the lighter's spark wheel. She hadn't touched one since she was a teenager and lit bedroom incense that left chalky silhouettes around the posters that lined her walls. But the leaves threw themselves to the flame, and the smoke was thicker than she anticipated, than she'd seen online, curdling in the fishy air in an ashy grey fog. The twine blackened, then vanished. She heard her neighbours coughing. Coincidence. The expensive candle she'd placed on the kitchen windowsill lit like a cartoon light bulb idea. It threw shadows from the mother-in-law's tongue she hadn't put there, but it looked right. Both looked just right. The flame puckered and whiffled. The draught, she told herself. It was okay. That candle was bought to be lit. That plant was meant to be admired. She burnt each of the bundles in turn, letting the smoke stream out behind her like a veil as she puttered between living room and front door, paced the bare boards of the hall and then the concrete of the kitchen diner. The final bundle she lit on the stairs, moving quickly beneath the flickering light of the landing. She hoped the smoke alarm would remain silent. The smoke would be long gone by the time Seb returned from the office. Or was it some kind of awards due this evening? Not going anywhere. The iciness of breath seared her earlobe. She steeled herself and wouldn't shiver. Fine, she said. Fine, she shouted, as she thumped each splintery spindle on her way back downstairs. The curtain blotted the sound of the gushing water, and the persistence of the streetlights. She felt cold, old and tired. She pulled out a chair from the table where she ate alone and rubbed her lower back. Her toes met with softness. Seb had a habit of leaving... No, a black cat dropped a triangular fish head at her feet, and they both looked up at her, the cat's fur slicked pitch with rain, its eyes the colour of mother-in-law's tongue in all its variegation. It mewed, and she bent down to offer it her hand. It mewled again, grazed its cheek along her fingers, and the fishy smell returned. She could feel it in the paste on her tongue, in the cracks of the roof of her mouth. Go! Get out! She got up from the chair, hauled the cat into her arms, and ordered a taxi from an app on her phone. No messages from Seb. Outside it was raining and dark. Bloated raindrops landed in fur and hair, and she could hear the rain plashing down on stone and brick, as though someone was taking a shower right there, in view of next door's net curtains.
You've just heard Spirit Level, a ghost story for Christmas by Sophie Parkes, part of Ghosts at the Old Library. Music by Oscilloscope, made possible by funding from the Arts Council and creative director Richard V. Hurst.